Test, test. Looks like the microphone's going and you guys can hear the audio. Cool, we're good. Let me turn the music up just a little bit. Always gonna mess with this. So anyway, welcome to our weekly stream. If you're new here, we do our Rainbow Trend stream on Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. And typically we start off, spend about an hour on Twitch, and then we go into the Discord channel for a roundtable discussion. Today's a little different. We've got a guest on. We'll be interviewing CryptoISO. And get the disclaimers out of the way. This stream is intended for educational purposes only. It's not intended to be used as financial advice. Even if you were to mistake this for financial advice, this is god-awful advice and shouldn't be considered. And for other disclaimers, that we're not sponsored in any way. We just do this because it's fun. I've always been fascinated by a bunch of the OG traders and always wanted to ask them a bunch of cool questions that I haven't seen done in interviews. So really happy that ISO came on today and is going to answer hopefully some really cool questions. I hope you guys enjoy it too. And we'll keep doing this through 2024. But ISO, if you could, I'm going to switch over to your screen. If you could say hi and we do a mic check, it'd be great.
Yeah, can you guys hear me okay?
Sounds good. Hold on, the guest screen is acting up on my end. Let me check the source. Give me 1 second, guys. I gotta change the source. It's not acting right. There we go. All right, we're good. I think so they can hear you and they can see your screen. So awesome. So, like I said, to start this off, this is CryptoISO. This is a guy I met probably about a year and a half ago through a mutual friend, Brett. You guys know me. I'm constantly developing tools and studying traders and trying to backwards engineer kind of what they do, what their styles are, and stuff like that. And I remember being introduced to ISO back in the day, and I was kind of shocked because I'd never seen how somebody would look at a market the way he does, and it was something I studied for a long time. And it took me about 3 months to even kind of grasp what he was doing and what he was looking at. And he graciously answered way more questions than I deserved, and I was able to understand, kind of grasp what he was doing, and I was able to actually get some Rainbow Trends tools built off some of the learnings I had from that, as well as some algorithms that I trade privately. So, but I vividly remember my discussions with our friend Brett. It's like flat out, Brett, I can tell. ISO is not a LARP, not a faker, but I honestly have no idea what he's doing. Like, this stuff makes no sense to me. So I spent months studying it. We became good friends, did a bunch of Twitter spaces, and wanted to finally try to get him on stream and kind of go over like what he does, how he looks at market theories, because it is very unique. And that's one thing. It's not necessarily a brand, but I always said, like, if you can blindfold me and then show me like people's charts, and I can tell you like who the author of them is. And like, if you want me to list some Wyckoff traders, I can list Wyckoff traders. You want me to list quants, sure. On-chain guys, sure. Ichimoku guys, sure. But like ISO in particular, I can't name anybody else who does liquidity theory with like TD sequentials or deep dives into up and coming coins or like NFT spaces like he does. So as much as I would like to go straight into BlackRock ETF theories and conspiracies with Larry Fink, I really wanted to start with like the basis of kind of like what ISO's journey was, how he got into crypto, how he got into trading, and some of the stuff. Because, like I said, like the stuff he does is obviously working for him, and that was something I remembered like telling Brett. Like, it's not like he's emulating somebody and just trying to do this for clout. Like, I can tell he's real. I just really struggled with understanding it, but it started to make sense, and now we got him on stream. So ISO, if you could say hi and I guess kind of kick us off, or how you kind of started, because you ended up with a unique style that had to have a very interesting journey to get there. So anyway, I'll hand it over to you.
Yeah, well, I think first off, this has been a long time coming, given how our relationship online has evolved. To your point, the Twitter spaces like Mango and Macro during the bear, when like It was you, Stacks, Phil, like a handful of other people, Avocado when he wasn't muted. Just basically shooting the shit, talking markets. And, you know, I think it really depends where you are in that stage of the market and how it's trading. During that time, we were just running like altcoins up and down based on liquidity theory and using high block, right? Because we were in more of a ranging market, right? And low liquidity, you could tell where the pain points were. I mean, I have a really hard time looking at the rainbow stuff just because, you know, the author is going to understand it the best. And sometimes I'm not as open to learning about other things because I have my own little toolbox of stuff that has worked for me, and consistency and keeping it clean based on the parameters that I need to look at for executing trades is something that has served me well. That being said, I'm always open to look at the other side of it, but I also started to realize that you can look at the same thing in a different interface, right? Like you were finding pain points just through what you were building, but it often matched up with some of the high block liquidity levels that I was using. I think you can agree to that at least, which is how you almost started to re-engineer that in a different way and building indicators around that. So, you know, believe it or not, I was even an Elliott wave trader theory at one point because those work pretty well in a bull market, and that taught me a lot about Fibonacci. And so, one of the things that I use in looking at levels specifically is key Fibonacci levels. It's nothing crazy, like 61.8, 70.5. Those zones tend to match up with interesting liquidity pockets as well as just basic support and resistance. There are multiple ways to trade just using SR, horizontals, even diagonals. The reason I started to look at liquidity theory was because it helps me understand why price gravitates to those areas. And often it matched up with big liquidation levels. And that also would tend to match up around Fibonacci levels, right? So multiple points of confluence helps you have more high conviction ideas when it comes from like a technical analysis standpoint. Now, to your point about TD was something that I learned when I was working in traditional finance, right? So right out of school, I basically went into equity research. So, you know, to your point about looking at narratives or coins kind of under the hood more so than what the chart is telling you, that's where I cut my teeth. And so I worked mostly starting off in industrials. So I worked for a number of analysts, basically did all the grunt work with modeling, being on top of news flow, communicating things to the sales force, right? That was where I started my financial services career. And I worked in finance for 6 years, and I did various industries, one of them being energy, right? I think we had we talk about that a lot, right? So exploration and production, and then the oil services and equipment space. So the history for me, trading markets, analyzing things started very early on. Where I learned TD was part of that when I was on a trading desk. So TD is Tom DeMark, and that's the TD sequential, like basically TD9 buy, TD9 sell setup. So that was just one other thing that I would use as a point of confluence when looking at liquidity theory, fibs, and the kind of the other variables I looked at. And one thing that I use with TD is Stoke crosses, right? So this can be on any time frame. So that's just like, all right, are you crossing on the bottom and it's a TD9 buy and you're around a fib level and you just hit a pocket of liquidity? That is a super high conviction setup on the long side to me. And then on the short side, it would be TD9 sell, Stokes turning over. Maybe you've gone from a significant drop back up to a 61.8 fib retracement, right? So and it's matching up with like essentially a supply zone. So these kind of checklists that I have when trading, liquidity range bound markets more so are essentially my tool set and how I look at it. Now, if you look at the market when it's trending really hard, liquidity theory is probably not the best thing, and that's primarily a component of it being a spot driven rally versus margin margin pushing up price where that's becoming more predatory. And to be honest, looking at how Bitcoin traded this year and Ethereum traded this year, or shouldn't say this year, 2023 from the start of the year, we didn't have as many crazy liquidation events on the way up. The drops were not as steep and violent. For the most part, it was actually pretty systematic in the way that the uptrend held. And I think that's largely a component of just as the market matures, adoption occurs, also removing a huge bad element of the market, right? Let's call it Alameda, like FTX. That was extreme predatory price movement and manipulation, no question. Now, if you look at the players involved, it kind of trades differently. This price action right now is something that I'm it's kind of hard to figure out really what's going on the majors. So if I just look at when I analyze a market and what tool set I want to use, the liquidity theory on the way up was not as useful as it was on the way down in a range bound market. You can still play it with alts, but it wasn't as effective. So you can say using that in range bound is good, and then let's call it using it Ichimoku for trending markets, looking at higher time frames. I don't know if you see my chart. The yellow line is the Kijun. That's essentially a trend following system. So since 30K, we didn't touch it. Now we're below it. So is this a fake out? Is this a real change in trend? I mean, you can go look at Ethereum over here, right? We're still holding the Kijun on the daily, which is 2350, right? So the Tenkan is 2400. So Ethereum to me is still interesting in the sense of you had a higher high made. So where's your higher low potential? Well, it's basically this area right here, which is your Kijun. Can you come down to this diagonal and hold this structure? I'm not sure yet. For Bitcoin, if you look at losing the Kijun here, do you get one of these and then we sit below it before we reestablish the trend? It's all kind of up in the air for me. To be honest, my strategy for the market right now has not been so much of looking at margin trading. It's actually just holding spot from my approach of kind of October, November, building positions in altcoins that I think are going to be narrative driven, where I'm going to get much higher returns than trying to trade Bitcoin or Ethereum on leverage or holding spot. So this goes back to more of the fundamental analysis side of things that I did starting off. Yeah, I mean, a lot of this is vapor, a lot of it's hot air, but the way markets trade and the way narratives develop and how the herd jumps into things, it doesn't really matter if you believe in the idea or not. It's how you want to be positioned from a capital allocation standpoint before those people start to pile in. So gaming metaverse was a really clear one to me when that happened, and that was something that served me really well. So now I'm looking at where's money going for this year, and I have kind of been pretty vocal about real world assets, RWAs, and positioned accordingly in some names around that. And now you can start to actually see it in the news, right? Larry Fink, tokenization of everything, right? You can start to see the writing on the wall of where's the hot ball and money going to go, and is that going to be a big story for the upcoming year, right? You have all the simple ones like AI. I mean, that was a huge one in stocks, but AI coins moved a lot actually at the beginning of last year. Gaming and meta is always kind of one of them. So right now I'm actually looking more at ideas and fundamental analysis of these cryptos and where narratives are going to start to arise and where's that money going to go. Because like Bitcoin and Ethereum are not exciting markets to me right now, really, to trade. Um, and yeah, that's kind of like my download of, you know, where where my head is at and how I started and all sorts of things.
Was it unique to you in the at the trade desk, or was it common to see other traders at a TradeFi trade desk using like Ichimoku and TD sequentials?
TD is an old school Wall Street thing. I never saw anyone using Ichimoku in my life. I also used like line charts and bar charts on Bloomberg. Didn't ever really use too many candlestick charts, to be honest.
Really?
But when I got into crypto early 2017, um, I knew I was a chart guy. Like charts always tell the story for me. But I really dove into learning like Fibonacci, all sorts of other techniques. Like Elliott Wave was legit one that I traded Tron on that worked. The market traded like bull market, like triangles break up, you know, like you retrace, it gets bought up. It was a different tape at that time. And then I was like, Elliott Wave really doesn't work. Or is this, you know, maybe there's a simpler way here. And then the basis of that is Fibonacci for really, like if you're looking at how the wave counts work and in theory, where wave one should retrace to on a 2, what 3 is, what 4 is, what 5 is, right? It's a 38.2, like 61.8. You start to learn that, okay, you can use Fibonacci just outside of that. Like, and so I started to do that more. And then of course you look around at other people and what they're doing and you take bits and pieces of it and make it your own. Like no one invented Fibonacci on crypto Twitter, but everyone uses it. Liquidity theory is a very unique thing. So kudos to the high block Kingfisher guys, but it's essentially just, okay, if I know the market order and the position size, at what point does it liquidate based on X leverage? And then it just becomes like a percentage basis of the move, which is kind of just using like, okay, how far, which standard deviation away from price is this going to become a pain point, whether it's on the long side or the short side. So again, you're repackaging things, but a lot of it is the same concept. It's really just what works for you in a comfort level, back testing, and then staying true to that kind of system that you build around it. But for me, I have, I guess, multiple systems because the market dynamic really depends on what system I'm going to use or where I'm going to focus my time and energy.
That's a question Stacks had.
Yeah.
Is how do you identify a market changing without liquidation emails telling you the market's changing? Because a lot of people I've seen will trade a range setup over and over and over, and then we start going into like a bullish spot run, and they keep want to try to do their range trades and just get eaten alive.
Yeah.
But you seem to just flip. I'm done doing that.
Yeah. So are we in a range right now is the question. I think you can go look at some prior price action and maybe patterns and look at like, okay, are we going to consolidate here between, I don't know, are we going to trade like a 45, 46 range to, you know, 40K for a period of time? I don't know. More things kind of have to develop around it. You can look at like well, here, let's just like look at high block right now because where is it? I never know.
And I like your comments while you're going over to this. Something I always say is like you can't emulate somebody.
Too, it's a lot of feel, but there is data to back things up. Like let's just look at Bitcoin right now on Binance liquidations, right? So, okay, like now you just built up some shorts here, and this could squeeze up after taking this low, and this low, right? So what do we have here? The low, okay, 41.7. What was the low print on the day for Bitcoin today? Did it go to like below 41? trying to think.
Yeah, 40, 40.6.
It did?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, it went to 40.6. So yeah, 44. This is where like based on high block, there's shorts building up. You can squeeze back up to like 42 and then continue to sell off. Or this is your range low. And it's just not a really defined range high here for me. This was your okay. So market structure wise, I would say the stacks is the primary thing in terms of when range bound versus spot driven stuff, and because that in itself is telling you that price is trending up. You're not in a range, right? So this is tough though because this was your last high, like 32, and then you just went straight up. But you went directly into 48.6, which is the 61.8 Fibonacci of literally the whole entire macro move. So this is also to my point, like this area is and was resistance. Now, on a weekly level, can you come back down, hold the Tenkan to 37.5? Sure. Can it kind of dick around here and then you just sidestep into this? And that's how you continue kind of this like 40K range. I don't know. Like I don't have the answer to this right now. And that's why I started off saying like this is hard for me to understand. I'm not focusing so much on Bitcoin. I'm looking at narrative driven plays, and on weakness, I like to buy them because you get attacked on Twitter for like being bullish or something. Like one guy was like, "Oh, you were bullish at the top." I'm like, "Well, I was buying C pool at 8 or 9 cents. Like that was my goal, what I wanted to do, build a position in that. It's actually done okay against majors, and I don't look at the market right now as like next week. I look at it as like 3 to 6 months. And I think that's like a hard thing for people to grasp because we just went up pretty fast, right? Pretty quickly. And the
Well,
way
people forget we were at 15, 20K for a long time.
right, exact. Well, yeah, I mean, you started the year at like last year at 16 and you ended it in the 40s, right? So it's like that was a pretty nice move. And then Ethereum was what, $900 or something like that. It went to 27. Yep. So it's all perspective, right? It's not going to go up in a straight line. And if you looked at like last year, you had periods of like 2 months where it was trending down. Fine. You could choose to short it. You can choose to be a scalper in those mini ranges, which, to be honest, I'm not good at. Trading altcoins in that environment is usually difficult in a downtrend because liquidity is just really bad. So it's a liquidation like cascade event, either direction on smaller moves from Bitcoin and Ethereum. So it's like in that instance, I start to look at the Stokes on higher time frames when things can be oversold or overbought. I start to look at TD, and then I'll probably start to look at liquidity, but elements of time are more like 2-month downtrend, right? Let's just say like I don't even know what this time frame was. This is from December 6th to January 4th, right? That was the Ethereum like essentially like bottom. So there's a month right there. And then you did basically Jan 3rd to what do we have here? The 12th or something? Okay, so if this was going to trend down for a month, maybe it's February. Maybe it is a downtrend and you come into here and then you're going to go up again. That to me is an element of time. And then I would start to look at maybe the weekly Stoke or the daily Stoke starts to get oversold again and you're going to get a TD. I don't have the answer to that, but these are the things that are kind of going through my mind right now that I'm going to start to look at. But you're down here in oversold territory. So is this going to bounce from here? And the Kijun was a fake out. I don't know. It's interesting how risk is trading alongside of it because it's not as bad. 4,800 S&P, 17 one on NASDAQ. Uh, it's again, it's very up in the air for me right now, but I'm focusing on narrative driven stuff where I think money's going to go. And when those things happen and when people actually move over to that and you start to see the shift and momentum, all you're waiting for is for the hockey stick effect on the chart. And it's like a much more calm, cool, collected way to trade crypto, to be honest.
Oh yeah, I for one hate leverage, and one of the things I want to back up to is the we saw one of the big leverage players go offline overnight when FTX died.
Right.
And I remember having talks with like 52K Skew, and I was like, dude,
He's really good.
the order books
Yeah.
are fucking like overnight look and feel way different.
Yeah.
And I was curious, was that a transition or was it like a light switch? Because, like you said, like you and I look at stuff very, very differently, but oftentimes, like we've got confluence that's really odd, or it's unique that we both see something but in a very different way. But I was curious if that was like overnight change to your look as well when looking at like range trading liquidity, because it was weird.
Yeah. I I mean, there was definitely a shift. Skew is really good at that stuff, and he's very good at it low time frame, like in real time.
Yeah.
All you need to do is follow that guy on Twitter, and you'll start to understand order books a lot more and how this whole game works. I use it for confluence sometimes around uh, positioning for like scalping and stuff, shorter term trades. But which instance are you talking about in particular?
Like like you said, we were in that downtrend for a while, and it's. I remember when you were just destroying sushi on leverage trades with liquidity theory, and then there was a shift. But you mentioned at the bottom of the Bitcoin market, like things changed when Alameda went offline, and I was curious how what made you like get that sense, because I kind of look at the order books. I'm not a 52K skew, but like things looked different to me and felt different, and the paint changed as well. Like the colors started printing differently, and I was like, man, this is Alameda's kind of gone, but Trabuco's not in jail. I got real uneasy with it, you know.
You
But
could see it in notional amounts in terms of looking at high block when they spit out the data. Like when I would be like, there's X number of longs or shorts, and then everyone would be like, that data's BS. It's like, all right, whatever. Seems to work. So like you it's going to show up in volume too. Like the altcoins, like we stopped trading those things because like the game changed. Like the price didn't move that way, and the notional amounts were significantly less. And that's just a component of like there's less market participants, less liquidity. It's not as efficient in terms of like the way the stuff moves. So I guess that would be my short answer for that.
that's cool.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just looking at like look at like what Bitcoin did in April, right, of 23. This is a
Bart.
what?
Bart set up, Bart set up, Bart set up, and just grinding people to a pulp.
Yeah, 65-day downtrend.
See, crypto Twitter was just
And here you have
depressed.
a 21st of June to okay, call yeah, I mean this is like this is a month, right? And then you have down here this is 17th of August to I guess you kind of start to break up here October, right? So and then you just went up basically straight from October until
ETF
the start of the
launch.
year. And the start of the year last year was like wake up bullish, right? So thing is like, are you supposed to wake up bearish now for this year and you're going to get a month or two where it's sideways or it's going to be a range before you start to see more upside? That's very real. The thing about like this whole situation for me with Bitcoin is that you just had the single largest event in the history of crypto happen. Like that everyone
Absolutely.
its inception. So I get it to sell the news event. Does that mean that the traditional price movement going into the halving is going to not happen this year into April? That is also one of the more bullish things for Bitcoin to happen, right? So typically it could sell off like go look at like 2016.
Oh yeah.
21 was not really like a good thing because of just all the other stuff happening. But it's like, all right, so was the move from 16 to 48 ETF and halving, or was it just ETF and now you're getting a second wind on the halving? And I do think you do get it.
I think you do too.
History tends to repeat, or rhyme, let's call it that. And those are big events that like don't just get ignored. So this channel, let's call it on Bitcoin, like we never really went to this upper diagonal. So I always thought we were going to do like 54s, 55s.
Really?
Maybe. What? Yeah.
Man, well, that's what scared me too. Is frankly, we started getting into the 40s, and I was like, "Are we really going to start nipping
like 54 right here?" And it was going to go past the 61.8, but like it stopped directly at it. And what did it correct? Like, in the grand scheme of things, like how much has price actually gone down?
Not much compared to the amount of crying right now. It's not that bad. Like I remember when Bitcoin would do a 10,000 print in a day.
It's 16% down right now. ETH off the high is, let's see here. This is also a really large part of how I look at majors is percent corrections and then looking at what they've done in the past. Like you get 20% corrections on Bitcoin tends to be a good buy. It might not be an immediate like recovery, but it could just sit there around the 20% area and build a bottom, and then sellers are running out here, and then you get a big move, right? Like impulsive nature in that regard. So fine, ETH goes down 16% off the high, you get the bottom channel here, and that's 2260s, right? Or maybe it just sidesteps into it and you're hitting the Kijun around 23 in this area. That's where I would actually really start to look at Ethereum. If this stuff continues to drop and you lose, let's call it the Tenkan at 2,400. BTC, if you got a 20% correction on Bitcoin from the high, not uncommon, fine, 38.8. I mean, is that feasible? Yeah. Like, I guess it becomes like a waiting game to when you buy again. Because like market structure wise, like this is still a bullish trend for me until, you know, you've ruined a higher low. And that is kind of hard to determine here. I guess it would probably be this, to be honest, but that seems really low because this is a breakout candle over a let's call it a pretty long consolidation. I mean, I don't think you're going down there personally. So I would start to look at, actually maybe just draw a diagonal. Like 40K, I think is going to be like that. That'll hold, I think, for a bit. I thought 42K was going to hold for a bit, but here, right there, 39s. I think you need to be buying even for a trade around that level. I mean, today you could have tried at like when it was just hovering above 40. I had a friend text me, traditional finance guy, works at a hedge fund. He goes, "All right, when are we buying this thing? It's looking like maybe there's a bid around here." I think, and I was like, "You could try in the 40s. Like it seems reasonable." Again, he's buying spot Bitcoin here. He's not buying on leverage.
Yeah.
So, yeah, as you can see, there's a lot of things going through my head right now, and I don't have a concrete answer for everything, which I think you need to have in this market and be able to adapt and like understand that it's all these forces that are way out of your control.
Absolutely, and it's the one thing I notice with other, like I try to tell people, like is a lesson, like you need to know when you don't know what's going on and throttle things back. I was like, we're 3 months from the halvening. The ETF's just launched, and Silbert's dumping like a madman, and there's all these people sidelined trying to figure out, is it going to dump, is it going to pump? And I was like, you know, this is not the area to sit here and try to scalp. Like, you
Yeah.
know, we've been building spot bags for months. Like, I'm. It may sound like I don't care. I'm just numb to a 5-10% move. Like, it doesn't affect me. You know, these
Yeah.
bags that we built months ago are in spot and they're fine. But you know, in my opinion, start looking for the narratives like you were talking about, because you find the right narrative. I don't care who you are, you can't out trade it. Like, you can't out trade like say and whiff. Like, you know, you just get the right thing at the right time, and you get in before the crowd goes. It's full send, right? Get that hockey stick candle. But we got 3 months to the happening. I'm not going to get bearish now, and
Yeah.
the goal is not to capitulate and get liquidated. Like, you don't want to get liquidated when the happening's coming. Like, the bull run rhymes with history and typically comes, and it comes like it gets going fast.
Yeah. And you don't know necessarily like what's going to do it. The Ethereum ETF stuff to me is, I mean, when that writing was on the wall, right? And then what, it was delayed today or something to March 5th or something. I
Yeah,
forget what
they're gonna
happened.
kick it till I think May is the date that matters. But
Okay,
I
like
mean,
look at the timing of that, right?
yeah,
Post halving on Bitcoin after it does the move, sells off, and then ETH does the bid, and everyone thought it was going to happen now. Like, that's a feasible thing that can happen. Where the other thing is with NFTs, you're levered with no liquidation price to the underlying a major, right? Whether that be Solana or ETH. Now, even in some instances with Bitcoin and like what's going on over there. So that's another area I have focus in. Dude, pandas, I mean, penguins, I like opened up my phone and I thought my OpenSea was broken. Those things hit 20 Ethereum
what?
per penguin. Yeah. So like the Genesis pandas are now 2 ETH, right? Okay. 2,500, 2,450 times 2, like it starts to add up if you were really early to those things and you accumulated those like a
Oh, the
penguin.
entire bear market for a year. I've heard you talk about stacking pandas.
Yeah. So
You're
I
not
still,
crying about it now.
yeah, because the utility made sense to me. So going back to what a fundamental approach would be, I get the penguins thing because that was a toy essentially, and they're getting it in Walmart, and there's probably all sorts of royalty things, and so maybe the general public has a better time understanding that than like DeFi protocols, right? So yeah, playing in various aspects of the market is essentially diversifying. But it's nice to have exposure to some of those NFTs. Like some of the Solana NFTs went absolutely insane when the Solana was going up to $100. Like
Yeah.
you're like double levered essentially with the price going up at the floor price going up at a like exponentially higher rate than the underlying, but the underlying still being like ripping relative to the market. It's like the most beta you can capture. So penguins right now, I mean, they doubled floor price since I looked last when I saw that 20 ETH, and ETH had gone from like it did its move. What was I guess this like this rocket ship thing to the top channel. 20%.
Yeah, that was the.
Yeah.
It started breaking up, and
Yeah.
the
See how this
BlackRock news
diagonal
hit,
just,
and
like,
it fucking
here?
went crew. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it was right when Larry Fink was basically saying ETH is next, and then these news cycles, like it didn't last very long though. Like it was pretty quick. And so that actually surprised me a bit because I thought ETH was gearing up to do significantly not larger but more sustainable move.
I thought it was too, and then we saw Solana step out in front, which I thought was real interesting
Yep.
because normally it's Bitcoin then ETH, and then we had Sol shoot through, and a lot of the guys in the Discord tore that they sniped the bottom and tore it up, and
On
um,
Sol.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, Sol's interesting because you're going to come into the daily keygen around the 80s, right? Maybe you get this diagonal, but this has a lot of touches on it. Another thing I look at is a rule of fives, right? The line can only be touched so long. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If this were to come down 6, if this starts to break, then well, that's not good because you've lost the uptrend essentially from $52, and that was November, right?
They were hounding on me to get into this, and I'm just like, man, I don't think Alameda's dead yet. This trade's not for me, but they got in below 20, got out of
Oh, really?
close to the top, and rotated into F.
Damn, you get some power traders in your group over there.
They're better than me.
I had some Solana NFTs, so I had exposure to that, and I sold them early. Still
You have a
make money.
Solana phone?
No.
Not yet. Dang.
Do you?
No.
Yeah. The Saga thing. No, I did not subscribe to that. But hey, again, it's like you can't focus on every little thing, and if you try to do that, you're gonna miss out on opportunity and probably just chop yourself up. So during like
True.
a crazy uptrend, or just like Twitter is going nuts and crypto is in the news, and like there's all these things happening. There's airdrops. There's bridging over to new chains, and like trying to capture every little thing. You will make yourself go insane. So for me, I had to learn that like over time. So again, like I know where I excel or what I'm looking for, or I have targeted things, and I have to like block out the other stuff. Like I started to look at BRCs after a guy came on my spaces, the Giga Chad Panda guy,
Love
and
that dude.
I was like, I'm gonna lose money doing this. I have no idea what's going on. It's confusing, and so I I just was like, this doesn't. I can't. I don't have the brain power or the time for a learning curve on this. So I didn't do it, right? So it's like, why aren't you trading meme coins over on Solana? It's like, well, I'm not good at trading meme coins to begin with. I'm not super comfortable on Solana, and like I don't even know where to begin because those things move so fast. Like you have to be early, and the way you're early to that is like you got to be in Telegram groups, and like I'm in some of those Telegram groups, and my head is going to explode. Like,
Oh yeah.
there's something new every day, and so
Oh yeah. That's how it is talking to Jared Gray.
oh
He'll start DMing me sometimes, and we'll start getting off on some tangents, and I just have to stop him. Like, Jared, I don't know what you're talking about, but I can tell you're excited.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
you were using words that I think are English, but yeah, go off sentiment. I mean, and to your point too, I finally really focused on that this last quarter. I went on a Say and Tia run, trading those between Coinbase and Kraken left and right, and doing some arbitrage stuff. And normally the streams I go over traditional markets and everything else, and I was like, guys, I'm tapped out. I'm just focused on this crypto stuff right now, on these a few assets, but mainly this. And I think
and that's where like you find a niche, you extract as much value, you milk it until it doesn't work, and then you move on. And
yep,
that's what we did with some of these altcoins. We did it with Lido early, we did it with Sushi, and that was a liquidity driven theory trading style until it didn't work. And so it's like, all right, well, it didn't work, and then you keep trying to do it, you're losing money. The best thing you can do is just trust yourself and cut it, and then move on and wait for the next thing to arise, and then step in there. But like, if you just try to step in too many things, it won't work. Or if you're copy trading other things, like, and doing what other people are doing, like it inevitably won't work. And it can work, but you're not going to learn anything from it. So that's a big part of it for me too.
that's back to your thing. Like you were talking about, like you can't emulate somebody, and I've always tried to tell people that. But I'm like, you can study somebody and find like bits and pieces that match like your mindset and add them to your tool bag. Like I've done that along the way. Like I've grabbed stuff from every person along the way that I've studied. But like I tell people all the time, like that are super super like trying to study TraderMan, and I'm like, TraderMan's amazing, but I'm like, you're never gonna emulate him. So like, don't focus on that. Like focus on the lessons that you can apply from him to you, and like vice versa. Like I've learned a bunch of stuff from you and implemented into mine over the past year. I've learned a bunch of stuff, like Josh Olswicks, all these different people. Just like I know I can't trade clouds like that guy, but I'm gonna grab some of these cool things from him. But
Yeah.
the one thing I do want to touch on this stream too is you like when you were talking about like the gaming stuff that popped off, the NFTs, looking at pandas, like you've had a real high conviction of pandas as of well, as do I to an extent, because the one thing I've learned is like you do not ever bet against ice bags. That
Yeah.
dude delivers. I don't care what it is, it's going to deliver. And like I 100% agree. Never bet against that guy. Especially, I had John Jones dancing with a panda shirt on my homepage on Twitter. I was like, I'll be damned. This is
Yeah.
the goat of fighting, dancing. I was like crazy. But the one thing I wanted to say is, before looking at like really new projects, what is like your go-to like vetting process of trying to figure out if you're interested or not? Because I've seen you talk about stuff that like you're playing with and looking at and vetting, and then like it's really obscure, and then like a year later it's blown up and it's people now know it. But I'm curious, like, is there a process you go through that? um
It's literally things that make sense to me. Dude,
you have to trust your
I
gut.
didn't have any NFTs before the pandas. Okay.
There you go.
To your point, Icebags is a real business guy who has a real business experience, has been around the block outside of crypto, and is capable of building things. That was the one thing, right? The other thing was I've never understood the utility of some of the early NFTs, and the prices they got to, and the market caps they got to. So when I started to look at what the pandas were, the next thing becomes, to your point, or to what I said about it makes sense to me, is if it makes sense to me and I'm looking at it from a normie standpoint, there's likely a higher probability of adoption, which is going to grow the valuation because there'll be more people participating in that ecosystem, right? So
Absolutely.
Luca and the Penguins, the guy bought the project for like, I don't know, $2 million. It was like a $2 million valuation or something like that from Cole or whatever. And those things sat at a pretty low floor price for a while because there didn't seem like there was really any vision for the project. It was just another one of those NFT projects that like cute should go up. Or I also don't know the history, but Luca was known for bringing to market like the number one selling toy, which was the Gel Blaster. So here you are, you take this guy and you're like, well, this guy's capable of bringing a toy to market. So is he going to do that with the Penguins, and how is he going to do that? All right, now they're in Walmart, and there's like a digital component when you buy the thing, and that, you know, is essentially you can change the traits and on the, or add things, which is funny because the pandas were really first to a lot of things that NFTs are trying to implement. Again, that was another part of the thesis. Having the NFT and being able to change it, and looking at how younger generations like look at Fortnite and Roblox and digital skins, and Bags and I clearly saw eye to eye on this because a lot of that inspiration came from his kids and that stuff because he saw that's what they were doing. So again, longer term view, what makes sense, what's the trend? Younger people are coming, you know, becoming more accustomed to just looking at life through a digital lens, and they value that stuff. Cool. Pandas now have the ability to change essentially the skins, the assets. Some of those assets are going to then be made into real things. We started to see that already with some of the Nike shoes and the NFTs. So it's like, you know, the writing is on the wall for some of these things. But the real utility for me with the pandas was that you could use points, right? You know, a points system that could be redeemed for things in the real world. So you're now your approach is almost that you're going normie first and crypto second, and that I had not seen before. And I looked at it as almost like a credit card reward. It's like point system, right? Owning pandas is yielding you actual things. Like you can go to a raffle on the PP decks. Also, the marketing and everything was hilarious, and people, I was like, oh, this could go. This is just creative. So yeah, it started off, and my thesis evolved into like a lot of different things, and I had no idea that they were going to be so focused on like UFC. Okay, well, you're just now going into growth markets. Like combat sports is a growth market, right? It's a huge audience, and so get the biggest fighters rocking pandas at some of these things. Like you're inevitably going to start to get more interest from marketing to a new audience that might not be in crypto.
To those who don't know, when he's saying like the best fighters, like Bag's got the greatest martial artist of all time to rock pandas. Like that's and like I'm huge. I'm completely agreeing with a bunch of what you said. The normie first, crypto second. I hadn't even thought of that, but that makes complete sense. You're right about the growth market. Like there's only two sports I watch, and I religiously watch UFC and motocross. That's it. And absolutely love USC. So like I started flipping out when I started seeing like the pandas moving into mixed martial art competitions. And then also
I don't watch any of that stuff. And I was like, all right, like this is this is real. This is like running a real business. And then they launch an apparel line and a podcast. Dude, that's makes a lot of money.
Yes.
Start to actually look at what is the NFT project worth? Are NFT projects going to start to raise money? And you can look at floor price and come up with like potential valuation on what it could be, right? So that's really like how I looked into pandas, and that's the only NFT project I really actually owned on ETH, minus near NFTs I lost a lot of money on during that run. But
the other thing is the vibe. I've never run into a panda PFP guy who's not just chill and badass. Like I always tell people, like number one rule in the Discord is good vibes only. Like you want pissing matches and stuff like that. Like we're not doing that. And the panda dudes are always been badass. And even this year we've had a lot of the actual panda mods pick up rainbow trends. So it's like I'm actually I'm watching the panda Discord because they occasionally tag me on some of the rainbow theory charts.
Yeah, there's a lot of cross promoting. I think spaces were a big part of it too.
I love the spaces where you had Icebags come on. He's absolutely hilarious.
The guy
doesn't care.
Yeah, he doesn't care. And we got Jared Gray rocking pandas, and then like,
I gotta get me a rainbow one of these days.
Oh, an honorary?
I don't know if I've looked a few times looking for a rainbow one, but I'll take a look again. Look up honorary.
Yeah, so these are long-term plays. You know, if you think about when they came out, the price of ETH, and then how they've appreciated in value from floor price and where ETH is. Like having some patience and watching things play out, like it's hard to do in crypto, but it's actually how you make the most money, I think.
Oh, you have to do the opposite. Like no one wanted to buy Bitcoin at 15K. Now it hit 48, and now they want to buy it on leverage, and now they're crying on a pullback. Like your conviction to sit in a spot bag for a year is hard to fathom, but it takes time to get that type of like cycle mentality.
Yep, understanding cycles is a big part of it.
9K is really big on that. Like there's a time where he'll start destroying leverage scalps. There's other SWO. Sorry.
Yeah, I should have. Man, when he DMs me stuff, I didn't have the bandwidth, but like the say thing, he just like teed up.
Yeah. Like, so this is I've been trying to teach this, and I don't know if it's resonating, but I'm just like, you guys need to be able to figure out who's lying to you, who's a LARP, who's real. And then I said, once you figure out who are like the OGs you trust, you need to understand how to read them. It's not what they say, it's how they say it. And like I've known SWO, I call 9K since like 17, and I've never seen him have conviction when he started talking about Tia and Say.
Yep.
for a long time. So that put Say and Tia on my radar, and then I just started rainbow trading the hell out of it for 3 months, and that's all I focused on. And I think I did a 7x on spot,
There you go.
and I just like I don't have the bandwidth for other stuff. Like, and that was what the streams were. It's like I'm trading Say and Tia, and I'll show you how to trade rainbows and Barts on this stuff because this stuff paints beautifully.
Yeah.
And it's bullish. So like you have an advantage. Like, yes, the Aave bags that I think look great right now and look like accumulation, they're not doing anything like this. So, but eventually, the one day that those bags will pump. But sitting on stuff patiently is hard. But you're right. Like, you find the trend, focus your bandwidth, and hit it hard.
Yeah, I should have really focused. I should have just actually internally talked to myself, be like, oh, this guy's actually like really good at this stuff. I forget what I was doing at the time, but yeah, he nailed it.
Oh yeah, yeah. And I think we started. I think he was talking about it at 15 cents, and like, it's going to be awesome. So and that's one of those ones where it's like, yeah, we're trading the hell out of it, but like, I honestly think this one's going to go top 25, and I'm like, I just want to have a bag of this into 2025.
Yeah.
So my main focus in trading right now is not dollars; it's trying to just grow that Say bag, sell high, buy low, over and over again, and chase the quantities, not that, but the other thing, because since we're talking like valuations of like NFTs, that was another thing Stacks was really interested in, because he's like, you're really big on the tokenization of real world assets, and Fink has started talking like that as well. But is there any data you're looking at to support that thesis? That was one thing Stacks asked, and for the
so
Golden
like
Retriever
anything where they're
Bros.
trying to put like credit on chain real estate. I mean, you could start to just go look at fractions of that valuation relative, like it just pieces of it, right?
Yeah.
The numbers are enormous if you really think about it. It was an interesting thing to see today. I don't know if you saw Ondo, which went up like 70%, I think. Let me check. I got it. Because someone hit me up about it, and then I actually put some tweets out saying like, there's more evidence of the real world asset trend happening. And Ondo launched, and yeah, dude, it's up 110% today. And
Pull it up on your chart. What's the ticker?
I haven't looked at it, but do you know what the fully diluted valuation is on it?
No.
2.2 billion.
Oh.
So this is the first time that we actually saw like one of these things go there. And so is this the spark for the other things? Because like the other ones are small. Like the whole market cap in that space is pretty small relative to like the rest of the market and the total addressable market that it could potentially be going after. The possibilities kind of become endless with that whole term of like real world assets. Like that's just saying that like anything can be put on chain, like tokenizing anything. If you kind of go look at what gaming and metaverse, like why that stuff went up so high and why there was so much money pouring into that space was because every single pitch deck was saying like, there's this many gamers in the world, right? And it's like, well, are there really? And then they look at video game valuations, and then they start to look at when Facebook can like changes their name to Meta, and then all those like Sandbox went to like 9 billion or something. Sandbox, right?
Sandbox and Jewel, yeah.
Then so if you think real world assets can do something stupid and that type of thing catches on, then like this stuff is dumb cheap, and like that's where you get like multiples higher on these things. So no, I haven't done any like Stacks is very like detail oriented and looks into a lot of data. I'll tell you right off the bat that I'm a bullet point investor, and I just need a couple things to make me super high convicted an idea if I think that's where money is going. There's like these little data points we were seeing, there's like significant amount of conviction from that when you hear Larry Fink say something like that.
Yeah, it's and even just like taking a step back from that, it's like this is literally the stuff we were dreaming about in 2017.
Yep, this was it. And so it's like
it's here.
Yeah. So Clearpool dude, they're $100 million valuation, fully diluted valuation, and they're 47 million on a circulating basis. And this is basically credit on chain. And they have a lot of like data to show that they're growing. And so a rising tide lifts all boats. Like, Ondo was like kind of the one today that really shined. And we've seen like when one sector or coin in the sector goes, then like people start to look at it all, right? Gaming, gambling, there's no difference. It's just a different, it's a different, it's a different ball of money moving to a different part of the space.
Absolutely.
IXS was another one someone told me about. Now people are just tagging like real world asset type things that here 69 million fully diluted valuation, 60 million circulating. Another like attractive thing is that because to your point, this stuff happened, like these coins have been around for a while, like they might have gone up and then they've flatlined, but the people that invested in that, or they're basically fully vested, makes it more attractive because it's unlike the Solana ecosystem where the FDVs were astronomically high and they just get sold into on every unlock. So I think Ondo obviously is 2.2 billion FDV, but the circulating supply is going to be much lower. Can that one go up a lot? Yeah, but then maybe it gets sold a lot faster because of the unlocks. But yeah, I mean, real world assets, like I think you can just look up that actual category on CoinMarketCap. I'm on my phone right now just because I usually do this over here. Market categories, RWA. Let's see here. I use CoinGecko more than CoinMarketCap too. What do you use?
I've started switching over to CoinGecko because I started noticing when I was chasing Solana ecosystem coins, I started noticing the market caps were wrong on CoinMarketCap and had to go to CoinGecko.
Yeah, I like CoinGecko more, but let's see here. I don't even know where the RWA thing is in categories here.
Especially because Coinbase is starting to list like a bunch of weird tokens that nobody's ever heard of that are like top 2,000. And
are they? They're doing that again?
Yeah. I don't know about again, but now if you look at their entire catalog right now, they've got some real oddballs. But they still don't have like a top 50 coin like Theta or Neo. But the
total market cap is 2.1 billion of real world assets. To me, that is peanuts for the TAM of like how much can be put on chain. And if financial institutions are telling you that that's coming next, yeah, I'm sure as shit going to be buying a lot of these coins, especially ones that are cheap, who have good teams and seem capable, one from a marketing standpoint and execute.
Speaking of the rising tides, though, what are your like macro thoughts on TradeFi going into this year with what the Fed's going to have to do later on in terms of rates and S&P almost back up to all-time highs? That's one thing that's scaring me is if market gets spooked, I don't think Bitcoin's just going to decouple.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're going to get rate cuts. I don't think it's going to be what people actually think when it's going to come second half of the year. It'll be interesting if it happens around the halving.
Yeah, I mean, I know
tend to match up, like just the way risk trades, because this is a risk asset. I mean, I don't care what.
Yes.
Yeah. To be honest, I haven't paid too much attention to it, and I probably should. Like,
lost your screen if you quit sharing.
Oh, did it? Hold on, let me try resharing. What happened was my computer went off because I probably hadn't touched it, but like the screen went off.
That's fine.
Here we go. Hold on. I mean, last CPI print wasn't like amazing, if I recall, but I haven't really paid attention to macro too much, to be honest.
That's fair. I'm not exposed, so I'm just waiting.
I've started to see those like you will probably have to pay attention to it at some point, but you noticed like everyone was talking about the dollar, everyone like that last year's playbook trying to use that this year and had to trade it didn't work, right? I kind of think markets can just like chop too for a bit because like we did just go up a lot, like, and are we going to start the year and just continue to rip on traditional assets? I mean, anything can happen. I haven't looked at like this is oil here. Is this where? Okay, so S&P. Let's look. Yeah. So I mean, look at this thing. This looks like this is going to go to new highs. Can you see my screen?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You're now consolidating, like basically, is this the same like December timeframe? Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. This looks like it can continue to break up. There's got to be like a reason for it to go down. So if people are anticipating rate cuts and valuations aren't out of control on things, I mean, inflation's not an issue anymore, really. It might not go down at the rate it did, but it's not going to bother people as much, in my
Yeah.
opinion. So if the data is just getting better slower now, it doesn't necessarily mean that price should go down, because the market's forward looking. And so if it's anticipating it to continue to go down or rates to come down, maybe it's just a slower rate, then I don't know. It could maybe just kind of consolidates, chops around, but still grinds up. I mean, is the dollar like doing anything that would make it look like a crazy move is coming?
The one thing I've seen pick up lately, because there is perma bears all over TradeFi Twitter, but is the yield curve inversion. I'm starting
Yeah.
to see that talk more and more and more, so I'm at least starting to listen um, to
Those
it.
are
But it's one of those things where it's like, let it invert and let me see what happens. I'm okay playing
yeah.
this slowly.
I mean, oil's just sitting at like $73. Like commodities aren't doing anything crazy where like inflation fears come back. I don't know. I don't have that big of an opinion on macro right now because I haven't been paying attention to it. I've been just trying to figure out like more narrative driven stuff in crypto and like understanding that the market is an ebb and flow of a tide. It's going to go up and down. But if you have, you know, if you think 2024 is going to be a year for growth in some particular sectors, like real world assets, whatever, gaming, maybe that's coming too, like second half of the year, then focusing your time and energy on those things is probably better. But yeah, I mean,
Well, this is the thing. Like
these
we
charts don't look bearish. Okay, that's the one thing. The S&P and the Nasdaq, like this looks like it just wants to keep going, right? And if it rips and then trades back in, then all right, look, but like you've been following the trend on this thing since November 2nd, basically. Yeah. Kijun, Tenkin, now it's trending. And that's also pretty much in line with how crypto traded. If you look at when things really started to pop off, maybe it was like late October, November, and then we've gone straight up, right?
mm-hmm.
Like so they kind of actually trade very in line with each other. Maybe just like different points of time where they correct, but that we have basically trended up on Nasdaq, S&P, Bitcoin, ETH, lots of altcoins on the same period of time.
I gotta ask you about the banks though. You have a bank chart up.
Oh, which
Think
one?
this
First,
First Republic. You think we're gonna lose any more banks?
not really. And that chart was up there just because uh, it's on my laptop and my office computer is different. I don't really look at this thing, but I think the bank fears are that happened, and that is on. I don't see it like something happening like near term really at all. Why do you?
No, I know we blew up a bunch of them, and
Yeah, I mean the regional bank trade helped to propel crypto up, right?
yeah, yeah.
So are you going to see that happen again? I don't think so. There's a lot of things that happen that like probably don't resurface for a pretty long time, in my opinion. So the next blow up where that comes, it's going to be a new thing, and everyone's going to be like, ah, you know. Then you'll hear it talked about a lot, and it's just like I don't have the ability to see those things coming. Stacks is pretty good at looking at the macro traditional markets
He gets skittish
outlook.
on certain data, and
Yeah,
I'll heavily take note of that. And just like that's one of those things. Like I can tell the tone he has is real skittish. So it's like, okay, let's watch this.
yeah. I think it was like around the end of the year too, a little bit. So I saw him tweeting, and he was on the Spaces. Uh, but again, like it's all about like what is if you are that, is that just short term, and do you think things are going to go up like longer, and this is just an ability, this is just another like chance to buy some stuff, or it's really like what's the conclusion from it, and how do you act or execute around it?
Yeah, and that was the thing. We were chopped up and range driven for so long, and now like there are certain narrative tokens that are just ripping for at least 2 months, and
Mm-hmm.
it's just like, hey guys, let's focus on this. Like
Yep.
that's really paid off. It's like as much as I want to look at Tesla charts right now, I've got to focus on say
I was looking at Tesla
the media is
because
starting to talk so bad about him. I think it's coming in on a macro bottom just on sentiment. Like I want a Cybertruck so damn bad. People are like, it's ugly. It's like, I know it's ugly. Well, it's EV. I was like, I don't care if it has a diesel engine in it. Like, I want one. It looks like a Halo Warthog in real life, and it upsets people. Like, I'm all about it.
so I was actually looking at Tesla because the chart itself, like this was essentially a 578-day downtrend that broke out. Can you see my chart?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then you had 148-day kind of like, yeah, it's a downtrend. And then it broke out, and I was looking at it here, and I was like, oh man, like, is it going to hold on this retest? Right? It's pretty technical stock. And I did see a 9. I think it was on the daily. Yeah. And this is where looking at nines in the past um, is important on things like this. Like you had one here, didn't work, right? You had one here, yeah, sure it worked. You had a sell here, nope, ripped higher. So like looking at nines in the past on things is also a big part of it. 9 here, you would have had to eat some drawdown. 9 here, drawdown. This was a sell that worked. So when I saw this 9 and I started to look at like the Stoke down here, I was like, maybe. And then I went and looked back at like the history of nines on Tesla, and they're actually not that great on a daily.
Yeah,
So yeah. And also like Elon's not helping himself.
he never does.
Yeah. So it was like kind of a sentiment thing too. But now you've broken down here, and like you've kind of fallen back below this, but you're still potentially making a higher low here off of all of this. So to your point,
That's where I have an order block right now on the algos have it. It's sitting right on it. We actually have like almost the same chart on. It's kind of funny.
oh yeah. So here's a 3-day. I guess that 9 actually is pretty good. Have you looked at like
it's really sensitive to RSI. Like you get a lot of the macro Tesla bottoms on RSI rotations.
Yeah. I mean, these TD setup trend lines also are kind of magnets for price, right? You'd basically run this low if it came into here, but like, what is that a percentage? How much does that need to go down? When is their earnings also?
Earnings is
Or did it? I think it.
January 24th, so they're coming up.
Okay, yeah. So 15%. Yeah, that's a lot. I don't know. All right, so yeah, January 24th, like you're coming into some interesting areas. Like that's something obviously to take into account too. Like maybe they have a really good quarter, and then there's your bottom, and you're positioned for the next move up.
There's a double pivot at 182 as well.
182.
Yeah. TD's like at 170. It's close.
You'd get like doesn't need to be like if you're getting 180, you have a 182 pivot on this thing. Like, sure, it's probably good for a trade. I mean, you're looking at this at like and you would see this going to like new highs significantly.
Right now it's ranging. I had the channel that you had marked, and it broke up above it, and then it came back in. Yeah, so now she's coming back in. So, but if you ever see like those reversion bands that I have, those are hanging out right below 200 right now. So typically, Tesla will macro bounce out of those, but we gotta see what it's gonna do. But like I said, we're going straight into earnings, and there's all type of Tesla hate right now in the media. Which in the past, when there's that much Tesla hate, it tanks and then pops back up.
Yeah, here PMA daily bands are 198. This guy only patterns. He's a friend of Luke. This guy Crypto Luca. I've known him actually for a really long time. He made. I don't really know like what the component of this thing is, but I do look at these things when it gets down to like daily levels on bottom bands, because again, just go look at the history.
Oh yeah, I've always noticed you have a rainbow that indicator.
Yeah,
not mine, but I've seen you post that tool for years, like all the time.
Yeah, and it's like it helps you tell yourself you're like yes, yeah. Look, there's more confluence. They don't always work, but like we're all doing the same stuff pretty much. It's managing risk and using your tool set to try to figure out how do I outsmart the market somehow.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like I remember talking to Brett like a long time ago. It's like I can see the whales and he can see the whale food. It's like we get a real weird confluence because we're coming at it from two different ways.
Yeah, like this is 4-hour 9 on that trend line and the Stoke cross right here. Like, I don't know. And when you fail a 9, it's really not great. So failed the 4-hour 9 daily, still has a little room to come down where it's like oversold.
Do you pay attention to the 13s as well?
So that's a combo thing, and no, I don't. I just take like the simplest approach. There's a lot of Tom DeMark products, like real ones, and you can kind of get lost in it. So I just look at like, okay, is the 9 below the 6? Is the hanging 7? Having a 9 like on like the lowest point is always like nice, and then actually Exo and I kind of started to look more at Stoke Cross and 9s because we would use those in our trading. I've known him since 17 basically. And he was the one who was like, hey, ISO, you should take a look at like what they look like when the Stoke Cross is on the bottom. Because he didn't use TD, and then he obviously looks at TD like occasionally, right? maybe it's not something you use every time, but it's something that's just in the back of your mind that you might look at if you're like maybe looking at higher time frame stuff, right? It's like, let's see what this actually might be showing, and if it's there, then like great. Like I remember when like ETH printed a 9 like last year in March on like a weekly or a daily after like a big sell off, and it was like a bottom, and like Bitcoin had done maybe a day before or a day after, and that was a 9, I think. So yeah, it's always just having it in the back of your mind. But it's funny that we both are looking at Tesla because I have not DM'd you or even spoken. I haven't even spoken to anyone about Tesla, and that's the one chart I have.
Well, it's out of all the TradeFi stuff, if you put Tesla on the 4 hour or the daily with like Rainbow Trend stuff, the algos just destroy it. They kill calling tops and bottoms. So I always watch it as kind of a macro thing
Yeah, I could see that. I
because
mean,
it moves like crypto. Like it moves like a crypto asset. It doesn't move like Apple. It doesn't move like Ford. It's real distinct and it's got a shit ton of volume on it.
yeah. So you were trading TIA?
Tia, yeah. So originally
Mhm.
I doubled a Tia bag and then started took the profits from that and made a Say bag. And then I started rainbow trading Tia and Say at the same time, and then playing the arbitrages between Coinbase and Kraken because Coinbase had some issues where they couldn't keep liquidity levels and they had like a 30% blowout. Um, so I got 25% of that arbitrage between Kraken and Say, and then just kept amplifying my Say bags. I kept trading rainbow blowouts, selling BART patterns, and then Martingale entering back into them just over time and getting my original or getting my my bags built to a larger position.
So where do you think TIA is going?
It's weird. Have you noticed it somewhat syncs with Say, and even Hasaka has been talking about it. Like Say and Tia rotate between their pumps. One, but oftentimes one will get the party started, and then the other one will chase it even harder. Um, the one thing about Tia that I'm super bullish on is SWO 9K is independent of Altcoin Sherpa. I don't know if you know Altcoin Sherpa,
Yeah, I know.
but they're not in the same circle. And both of them were like independently talking to me about their thesis on Tia, as well as Doppel. Doppel's one of my OG Rainbow traders. And I was like, there's three of these guys independently talking about the modularity of
Oh, I'm
Tia.
gonna chat with him, I think, and like Stacks maybe and Friendo. Frendo's real good dude also.
Brendo's one of Doppel's buddies. He's a good dude too.
Yep. We're in a chat because they always end up on the spaces. We always have just like interesting conversations on the spaces. Actually, we had like a couple last month or yeah, it was fun.
That raised a red flag for me to like laser focus in on Tia. I was like, 9K's talking about it, Doppel's talking about it, Altcoin Sherpa's talking about it, and they're in three separate circles. I was
Yeah.
like, I never see this, so I was like, I went hard on it, and it's
Is
been going
this
crazy.
did you get in like early in like the November?
Yes,
Nice.
I did over 100% spot trade on it, and then literally cut it in half and started trading Say with that. And it's just
I
I
mean
don't
this
think
thing,
I've done this type of trading since like 2017.
yeah,
Like,
this thing 10x.
yeah,
Basically.
it's crazy, and it's not a pump and dump. It's the market make like when I'm. It's hard to explain, but like there's certain things that paint colors in a way that are like sustainable moves, and then they start painting like repeatable colors, and it's
Yeah.
like it makes it really easy for me to trade because what essentially what happens is like I can tell when they've blown out, and I'll just take profit, and I'll wait for it to blow to mean revert back down over about a week, and then I'll get back in lower, and then I have to decide, do I amplify the amount of TI I had or just get back to the original position and extract the rest into like USD to mess with other assets. But
You have anything around 1480 on? Tia.
Let me pull it up. I don't know if you can see my. You'd have to look up Twitch to see my screen.
That's cool. I was just looking at it from 12-hour Kijun trending standpoint because it is in. I mean, it's in an uptrend,
This is
clearly.
what's crazy. All right, so like you and I do not have same tools, but there's an order block between 14.8 and 15.3.
Yeah, there you go. So
So
your
it's
daily Tenkan is going to be 1490. Yeah, I would look at like that as a level, like holding. That's your higher low off of essentially the 1260, and then you just continue the uptrend, I guess, because this coin seems to be bid. People like it. What is the average drop in the price on these moves down too? I'd look at.
I just tweeted you or DM'd you on Twitter. That's the chart, but typically it's been blowing out those reversion bands, resetting, and then going back up. But a lot of times it resets on those pivots or those order blocks that are in that thing. So we've got an order block at like 15.3 to 14.8, and then we've got another order block right here, which was 11.6 to 11.3 is what it swept before it went up. But
yeah, 1540 is an interesting one. You could take like all those lows, and then you would be touching the like tops of these candles on the 4-hour, like 1520, 1530, like right here.
Yeah. And then we're set. I mean, we've seen so many red days in crypto, and Tia and Say just shook it off.
Yeah.
So it's like whoever's behind this market making it is committed for a long term run. So it's like I'm starting to get mentally prepared to start locking stuff in to hit long term capital gains.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to eat short term capital gains on this next year.
Yeah. So
because if we do the crypto thing, like we say 2025, like say Bitcoin hits 150 and you start cutting these alt bags that are built a year before the Bitcoin run, I mean these could go bonkers, right? Like you don't want to be like you're going to be in another tax bracket whether you like it or not, and the difference between the long term and the short term is considerable.
Yeah. Yep. Oh man.
Clear pool.
This thing just like kind of sitting here. I think 3-day cloud. Yeah. So it's like still holding the 3-day Tenkan, right? If it starts to like, there's a lot of wicks here, but it's like if this has the ability to overpower sellers, then you start to get a pretty impulsive move. Like you came into a 61.8 off of like essentially this was your big impulse up to a high, almost 16, 15 cents. You didn't take this one. Broke above this prior high, consolidated, and that's where the move happened, right? So
how do you draw that fib? Are you doing it from the top of the wick to what exactly?
So this is this wick down and the starting point of I didn't do it here. I did it here because this is like the big impulse candle above the prior high. So you can,
Alpha
in theory,
week.
also do. You could also do here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then you're going to be adjusting to, all right, price can come down into 7 cents. And that is this consolidation and those highs and the prior high. Because you had this consolidation, that's why I took the fib from there. Because you shouldn't, if this is what's going to happen and where it's going to go, I don't think you should come back down to here necessarily. Could be wrong, like totally could be wrong. If you look at the daily, based on that and the trending indicators, like I was buying like here, and that was because of this is the daily Kijun, right? Like this is your trend,
You
right?
use standard Ichimoku settings
Uh,
defaults.
yeah, or no, it's particular to this, and I'll share it. I don't know.
Oh,
Zorn
mine.
is the itchy guy, and I think it's the same as like what the Josh guy does.
So
Um,
he
so
doubles
this is
his.
the input. Yeah, these are the inputs on it
Okay,
that
cool.
he uses. So back to this here. Uh, yeah, it was like a this is your trend. This was a fib, um, and look where price went, like 0.09, call it. Let's just say there, almost your 61.8. It's like okay, like that makes sense. Is this like a flag structure? I don't know. It's getting a little messy, but you're still holding trend on this, and you've been holding it for a while. Um, and these are starting to squeeze here, which is also interesting. So
Do you
yeah,
use the lagging span as well?
what's that?
Is
Oh,
that
the Chiku, like all the other components to this thing.
the one that's to the left, the thin,
This
the
this
further
one.
left, the one that's to the left of
Oh,
the peak? Yeah, that one.
this one.
Is that not the lagging span?
Yeah, which is like if price is above it, I think is the rule. Um,
I know a lot of
uh,
people turn that off, so I'm interested if you actually read it.
I don't even actually use it, but they're
Okay.
Zorn's the guy like who knows all this stuff. Again, I simplify things, and I just like if you were like, cool, we just traded above the Kijun at 4 cents, and you kept buying like retracements, then you're great, nice trade, and you broke above this prior high. Like there's a lot of components to this thing that I don't use that I probably should learn more about because we basically built a trading course on this, but his was more Ichimoku and I was doing most of the liquidity theory and range stuff. But yeah, so we'll see what happens with C-Pool. I don't know. Markets, what? For now we're at 40.8, 24.45 ETH. Like, it's not going to surprise me if we come into the high 30s.
Yeah, I wouldn't cry about it either or be surprised. They're just what's been crazy is the OI just keeps going up and up and up and then getting destroyed again, and then it instantly goes right back up again. I don't know why people are leverage trading the hell out of this, but when in Rome.
They're just creating exit liquidity for spot sellers.
Oh yeah, I guess.
I don't know. Yeah, that's a strange one. Man, Filecoin, thing's
That's one
crazy.
Jared is super bullish about, and I was like, "Are you talking about Filecoin, Filecoin?" And he's like, "Yes." And I
Yeah,
was like, "Damn, okay."
like I was buying like down here. I had tweeted like, "Here comes some relief." I think it went up here, and it's like, wow, like that was a pretty quick move, and then it just bleeds again. So it's like, what is this thing doing here? Let me open this. Right. It could be in a range. Have you ever looked at it on Rainbow stuff?
hmm I've got burned by that one. It paints weird to me, so I'm naturally averse not to trading it. But I've started looking at it again because Jared.
I've been scalping it pretty like
So like this is the H4. If you've been, that's awesome. But it's not what it used to be. Like the tokens changed. So, but you can see like it pushes into those reversion bands, and I'll
yeah.
switch the screens on for the streamers. It typically prints tops with pink candles, and then it rolls over and bleeds out. Rolls over, bleeds.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
if the market sells off significantly, it can go to like 4.
yeah, you got
Yeah,
to stack a pivot to like 4.3, 4.2, 4.0, and it probably won't get through that. But it's sitting in an order block right now, the 5.6 to 5.4. It'd be nice if it just
yeah,
sweeps that and goes, but Bitcoin's acting weak and everyone's getting really skittish again.
yep. And you got a weekend approaching too.
Yep.
So,
Looking long term though.
mhm.
Gun to your head, 2025.
Oh God.
What's the best advice you could give somebody so that they don't have to go through 3 cycles and make it, and try to get to like do it in like 1 or 2 cycles? Because
Best
there's a lot of
advice.
lessons learned, and that's one of the things I teach about. Like, if you're trying to follow an OG who doesn't show their scars, they're probably LARPing. So like
I have plenty of scars.
that's what I like about you is like you tell like, hey, I messed this up, learn from it so you don't repeat it. And
I think it goes back to the way you're going to trust yourself the most is defining a system that works for you, that you also understand will not work at times, but it's a huge element of managing your risk. And that becomes just part of starting off like, you mean just someone starting off like in crypto, like for the first time?
yeah, mainly.
Uh,
I mean, this all applies to everyone though. Like you're talking about like works for you because I heavily preach against like copy trading and trying to 100% emulate
you
somebody.
got to put in a lot of screen time is the thing to
Yes.
really hone your skills. So starting off, it's tough for someone because you need to try different things, and the way you do that is I mean, you can see it on Twitter, you can start to read, you can watch YouTube. Like, I'm not talking about like people shilling coins. Like, there's legit like Maine is, to your point, like he has a super specific system and he explains it well, even though he's like very colorful with his language sometimes.
Cracks me up.
Yeah, but like order blocks, like that type of stuff, then like, all right, maybe dabble in that, tune into that, like, and see if that works for you. But it's going to take some time to understand just the basis of TA, support and
Yes.
resistance, why, what that means for price, like fib levels. He uses fib levels, right? OTE is a fib level, basically. Um, or are you trying to be more sophisticated, learning like stuff that Magnus does, right? Like,
Hmm.
what is that? Order flow, like the charts they use,
Yeah,
like
it's
Jim Talbot.
that stuff's wild.
I don't understand that. I tried
Me
to learn
neither.
it. This isn't for me. Or maybe they start to look at your rainbow stuff, even though I think that's a bit more sophisticated for someone just starting off and needing to learn like the basis of TA.
Yeah.
Um, so you could take the technical analysis approach for one thing, or you can actually start to do research and read up and see like what narratives might be coming and then looking at coins. But again, you're probably going to need some charts to figure out like entries and exits around that. So I guess I don't have like the best advice for someone because you have to try things and figure out what works and what breaks and then decide what you want to use going forward, and that really takes time. So I guess going into 2000, like how long you think this cycle lasts. um does it go all the way into like deep into 2025? I don't know. I actually don't think. I think really going to be 2024. But yeah, I I guess I don't have the best advice for that. That's a tough one. It's
No,
also loaded.
you're dropping truth that a lot of people don't say because everyone wants to say, "Hey, my way is the best way. You need to emulate exactly what I do." But
It
it's
took me a while to really make money and be successful in crypto. So it's like
oh
I
yeah,
guess everyone moves at their own speed.
oh yeah. There's everyone has their niche, but it's like find what works for you and amplify it, and take little tips and tricks because like there's little you can't see it, but like my charts, like there's parts of Crypto Paradigm that are in it. There's parts of Josh Olowicz that's in it. There's parts that you're in it, but like there's little seeds that I've collected over time to like
Yep.
make what I like, and mine's very extreme compared to like what other people do, and but it's what works for me, right? And even then, once you get the TA down, do you have the mindset to bite when these other traders do? Like you've got to judge that too, because like I love liquidation cascades, and
Huh.
I will empty a bank account buying spot positions in those, and I'm numb to it. It doesn't freak me out. Like I emptied every single dollar I had out of my bank account during the COVID crash on Bitcoin. Like I was trying to log into Coinbase on like 3 different computers because it was overwhelmed and shutting down. And it's just like I buy these colors candles like every time.
Yeah.
You put white candles into a reversion band, I'm in. And I think
Yeah.
that's the
And
other
that's
thing is
where
like
removing emotion from trading becomes a big part of it too. And that is not something that someone just starting off is going to understand.
Yeah, because crypto Twitter, the sexiest thing is scalping on 100x leverage, and that's what everybody wants to show. And people get chewed up doing that, and I'm just like, you need to listen to these calm dudes who are trading like dailies and H4s. They don't lose sleep at night, and they survive cycles. Like, be careful of the paid group leader who lives in an apartment. Is all I can say.
Yeah. There's a lot of that on this screen. I guess Asia's just selling, huh?
Dude, tell me they got an ETF too. Honestly, with the Ethereum ETF, after all the shit show we had with the approvals, the hacked Twitters, the non-approvals, blah blah blah, I was like, I'm good with just if we don't do that. Like I'm fine with Ethereum not dealing with BlackRock because the SEC is just looking like an imbecile. And shout out to the SEC for getting lit up by Coinbase in court this week.
Big time, yeah.
Big time.
ETF just shows how the cycle can last longer. If the same thing happens with ETH and like what happened with the Bitcoin ETF and how many times it was pushed out and everything.
Oh yeah, and I think it's going to be at least a month before we figure out what the money's really doing. Like Barry's dumping so much, I think people are still kind of skittish. And then you look at the TradeFi analysis, who typically deal with ETF analysis, and they've been really caught off sides, not knowing how to even look at this.
Yeah,
like they don't understand what grayscale is and how it's dumping, and it's like, all right, we're just gonna have to let the dust settle. Because right now, going into a halvening, this is a bullish time where price should be skyrocketing and the focus should be Bitcoin, and it's not. It's ETF focused and pulling back out. And someone just commented the Beanie Baby ETF is coming. The Beanie Babies were actually referenced by the judge and the lawyers this week in the Coinbase thing, so keep that in mind.
Oh boy,
I started laughing. I was listening to it. I couldn't believe it. They both referenced Beanie Baby lawsuits. I was like, here we go. So shout out Coinbase for making those people look like idiots. But anyway, I think we're getting close to wrapping it up. If there's anything you'd like to say, I don't know if you guys know, he's got his own website. There's a lot of stuff, and he does a ton of spaces. That's where I've learned a lot about ISO. I don't know if you have a schedule for those.
Efficient thing, like a most efficient way to communicate ideas, I think, is spaces. Well, I think you'll meet some of the better people.
Oh yeah. Well, that's how I pretty sure that's how I met Stacks. Was through a Twitter space with you, and then that's how I met Avocado Toast. I met Nexus. There's been a lot of good people, but the funny, I say, what's the schedule of the stream? It's whenever I'm going to bed and checking my phone. That's typically when I get the invite notification from ISO.
Yeah, people are always like, dude, this is when I'm sleeping. Because I
well, I'm not going to go on that for 10 minutes. It's at least an hour, and it's fun.
Oh, dude, some of those lasted like, I would go to sleep and leave the space. People would be like, can you leave the spaces on? I'm like, sure. I just would go to sleep with my phone in the charger because you couldn't hand off the spaces ever. I don't know if you can now. Yeah. But
at least you can do it with a computer now, but it's still messed up. But
they go off a little late sometimes, but it's all good. There's a lot of good ideas. I've learned a lot on those spaces when people tune in and met a lot of good people. So I'll continue to do them, especially when like morale gets really low and stuff. People are just like super bearish, or it's like boring time, because then staying in this game, okay, that's one thing. Staying in the game is like a huge part of it. Like having the ability to stay engaged and talk with people, to maybe you find an idea, maybe you don't, but your mental state by almost socializing like is going to help you as being a trader in the long term, because it's a lonely game. It can be a very lonely game, that's for sure. And you're in control of your own destiny. It's not anyone else. So that's a big part.
That's awesome. Thank you for that. Thanks for coming on.
Hey,
I have
man,
to do it
thanks
again
for having
sometime and have to do some spaces, and I'm gonna have to go look up. Now that you've confirmed there is a rainbow panda, I'm gonna have to go look at that now. But
me.
anyway, guys, if you're thanks for tuning in. We'll have this uploaded on YouTube later. Make some clips and stuff like that. Like I said, I can't say enough. Thanks to ISO for showing up, and I'm gonna go hit up the Discord and see if any of the OGs want to hang out there. And we'll see you guys next week at Thursday. Talk to you later.